Welcome back to the Indian Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Raj Balkaran, and you enjoy stories and wisdom bombs, in general, good times while you're learning stuff. That's why you're here. Um, so we're going to tell a story today about pride, a story that encapsulates this wisdom that we have in this Western expression, pride before the fall. And we'll talk a little bit about, what does it mean to be proudful, right? Or proud. No. Isn't pride a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Well, let's see, right? What I would say is that it's useful to distinguish false pride from actual pride. And its corollary, its complement is false modesty from actual modesty. Maybe falseness in general is not so great in authenticity, that is, and authenticity is probably a more fulfilling and productive way of being in the world. One should very much take pride of one's achievements, of one's accomplishments. Taking pride is akin to taking stock. It's being objectively aware of something that is useful, that is valuable. Hey, why don't you come to my upcoming Hawaii retreat if you're in the area and you're interested in personal growth, personal transformation, Indic wisdom? It will truly be impactful. You'll really take a lot away from it. That's just taking stock of some of the value of the retreat. And without communicating that value to you, how on earth will you know it's there? That's different from you definitely have to come. This is the best retreat since retreats were created. You're not going to want to miss this. You need to come. Should come, definitely. Blah, 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 blah. So one is being proud from the space of the witness and taking stock of the accomplishments of the Isons, of the conditioning. The other is identifying with ego. Me, 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 me. Now, what you may not realize is the flip side of this is true in terms of modesty. So when people identify with and take pride with in an egoistic way, like you have to come, you can't miss it. I'm going to do my amazing storytelling, and you don't know how many skills I have that I could bring to this, my organizational skills and my culinary skills and this and that and lecturing and me, 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 me. This comes from insecurity. But when someone also says, yeah, Dr. Raja retreats really impactful. Well, I guess it is. Yeah, it's all right. It's not bad. False modesty also comes from insecurity. So it doesn't serve anyone to be egotistical about your accomplishments and attributes, nor does it serve anyone to be egotistically disavowing of your attributes, your accomplishments. A healthy sense of self is one that is able to see and perceive what is possible, what is doable, what is reasonable. Right? So false modesty is this kind of squeamish, egoistical inability to receive. Right? And false pride is this squeamish, egoistical inability to give. But true pride is a space of being proud of your ability to serve others. And true modesty is being in a space of being grounded and being grateful for all that you yourself are receiving. Right. And so these are tricky words in English, right? But here we'll talk about toxic pride, pride that incurs a fall, and a story of a tale of three strides. Many of you may be familiar with this tale. Either way, perhaps it's worth telling again, because, as a storyteller, let me share that every time I tell a story, there's a different understanding. There's a more nuanced understanding, or even a nuanced emphasis in the moment. Every moment's different. If it is being read, it's sort of a canned response in a sense. If it is being told, whether or not you have a written rendition as a prop, it is living as a function of the moment. And if two moments are not the same, how could two tellings born of two moments be the same? Right? Once upon a time, there was a great demon. Do you know a thing or two about demons? Do demons walk the earth in our times? Have they been mobilized and empowered in some way? Well, if only angels and demons had wings and horns, we'd be fine. They don't. They look like our parents and siblings and nieces and nephews and uncles and aunts and neighbors. To my mind, if we extend the logic of the nomenclature of these two great classes of beings, the devas, the gods, the divinities in Sanskrit, and the daityas, the demons, the dividers in Sanskrit, the devas are more or less the entities among us who bring light, who shed light, and who aim to bring us together. The daityas are those which aim to divide us. Yes, the division and schism makers. So once there was a great demon named Bali, and he was a pretty self-absorbed chap, let me tell you. He was power hungry. Isn't it interesting that those who most covet power over others are those who are least suited to wielding that power? Anyhow, he succeeded in conquering all of the underworld. Wow, what an accomplishment. Was he satisfied? No. This sort of desire is akin to a fire which eats and eats and eats and is never full. Okay. So then he sent his forces into the light of day and conquered kingdom after kingdom after kingdom until he finally held dominion over the entire earth plane. Was he satisfied with this, having conquered the underworld and the earth? Nope. Proud and powerful, he coveted even more territory. So Bali launched a campaign, if you can believe it, against the throne of heaven. He combated Indra himself, king of heaven, thunder-wielding Lord Indra, thunderbolt-wielding Lord Indra, the older cousin of Zeus, the older Indic cousin of Zeus. Indra himself was combated by Bali, and their forces fought long and hard until at last the demon Bali reigned victorious over the underworld, over the earth, and now over heaven's throne. He was Lord of three worlds. Never before had a demon conquered so much of creation. Bali was quite pleased with himself, and to show how powerful he was, he started offering boons, blessings. You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. And for those of you who don't know that reference, I'm sorry. Perhaps I'm aging myself. Anyhow, he started giving away gifts and boons and blessings, because if he gives blessings, then he can be akin to or analogous to the gods, right? Drunk with power and fancying himself a god, he offered property and riches and food, finally whatever people wanted. After all, he was in possession of all the wealth of all the worlds. Indra and the gods, now cast out of heaven, wandered the earth of mere mortals. Oh no. Can you imagine? So they all take a minivan over to the abode, the cul-de-sac of Brahma, the creator. They ring his doorbell. And his butler escorts them in, and they find Grandfather Brahma in his salon hanging out, watching some Netflix series or something. And, they say, look, Grandfather Brahma, there's a problem. Well, I realize there's a problem. Indra, that's why you're here. Why else would you be here? You never visit me unless it's a problem. So stop stating the obvious. And what's happening? Bali, the demon Bali, has conquered the three worlds, and we gods are again cast out of heaven. How could this be? Everything happens for a reason, Lord Indra. Have you not learned this yet? If not, there are some courses you maybe should take. Ethnicism school or something like that. Really good online courses that'll teach you about the mechanics of creation and share some wisdom with you. But everything happens for a reason. And for every problem, there is a solution. And every solution brings with it a blessing upon creation. Okay, I appreciate your learning, your philosophizing, Lord Brahma. I mean, that's all good and well for the philosophical types, for the spiritual folk. But please, how do we get our power back? It's interesting that everybody's concerned about power in these times. And yet all they're doing is giving their power to other people, allowing it to be stolen by the so-called media cycle. Okay, well, surely, Grandfather Creator, you must know how we can get our power back. You are the creator of all things. Yes, you see, but when I awake from my cosmic trance, when I'm in meditation, I'm kind of one with the one. I'm one with the source. I'm plugged in. But when I come back to my waking, mundane, separate consciousness, when I come back to the awareness localized in this one point in the cosmos, I'm just a cog in the wheel like all of you. Close my eyes. I'm one with the oceanic expanse of being. Open my eyes. I'm here in the becoming of time and space, sitting here with all of you. So I only have part of the puzzle. I have a teeny part of the puzzle. We all have parts of the puzzle. Creation's a huge puzzle, and none of us are really bound by a script. We're not puppets. We're not mere whims of destiny. Although destiny is true and real, we also have power. We also have agency. We co-create the universe through our actions. So I don't know how to solve your problem, but I know that Shiva will know. So I'm going to outsource this quest, to Lord Shiva himself. Intrigued and a little bit disappointed, the gods, Indra and the gods, all, packed into their minivan once again. And they, were transported up the mountainside, up the Himalayan peaks, to the abode of the great Lord Shiva, the Lord of Yogis, the great destroyer, the great transformer, covered in ash in his mountain abode. And, Shiva, when they encountered him, was ensconced in his typical cosmic trance. He was in a state of oneness with the one. Okay. Similar to Brahma and Shiva tend to kind of hang out and do spiritual practice a lot. You can't blame them. You see, there's three gods, three main cosmological functionaries for the three functions of creation and maintenance and destruction. Brahma is the principle of creation. He sets things into motion. Viṣṇu has to sustain it, no matter what that takes, for all of its many, many, many millennia. And then we see Shiva destroys at the end. So Brahma creates, and then he has a lot of time on his hands. Shiva has a lot of time on his hands until the end of days, when he dances destruction upon the earth and this. So it's kind of hanging out, doing his meditative thing. Okay, so he amasses spiritual power through his meditative process so as to dissolve the cosmos at the end of the age. Okay, he interrupts his cosmic trance here and there to give a boon here or to hang out with his beloved consort, Parvati, right? The gods, though, were not so keen on interrupting his trance because they knew that he's a little bit trigger happy at times. Lots of stories about decapitation. Those stories are for another day. But luckily, Indra and the gods did not need to wait long. Lord Shiva was in a merciful mood and he could perceive them there. He sensed their presence and he fluttered open his eyes and he saw them before him. And they all paid homage to Shiva, Nilakanta, the blue-throated god. They bowed before him, they sang his praises, and Shiva said quite graciously, "Welcome, gods of heaven, to my mountainous abode. I know of the situation in the three worlds and what brings you here. It is true what Grandfather Brahma has told you. We all have a role to play, yet this role is not mine. I don't know exactly what you need to do, but I do know that Viṣṇu will be able to help you. It is his dharma to preserve creation against evil. even if he needs to incarnate personally as man or beast or both on Earth. Travel to his abode and you'll find your solution. The gods thanked Lord Shiva, paying their respects before setting out for the abode of Viṣṇu, the last of the three great gods. Now, luckily, they hired this driver for the whole day for this from this minivan company. So, it's not like they had to pay per destination or per the hour. It would have been quite expensive. So, anyhow, they all clamber back into the minivan and they're transported to the abode of Viṣṇu. As mentioned a moment ago, Viṣṇu is the great sustainer. It's his job to preserve creation. Lord Viṣṇu warmly received Indra and his entourage, hearing their concerns with great compassion. He then assured them that he would devise a plan to bring resolution to the situation. So he took on an avatar, an incarnation, of which typically there are said to be 10 incarnations. But this time he took on the form of Vamana, the dwarf. Okay. And decided to personally pay a visit to the court of demon Bali in the form of Vamana, dwarf. And he decided to appeal to the pride of this egoistic demon, to appeal to his vanity. So Viṣṇu, in the guise of this dwarf, says to the great ruler of the worlds, Bali, "O great conqueror of the three worlds, it has been told to me that you are offering boons to we lowly citizens of Earth. May I request one?" "Sure, whatever you like, dwarf." "Well, what I would like is 3 strides worth of land." "Ha! Of course. Of course you can have three strides of land, silly dwarf. Especially with your teeny tiny feet. How large could your strides of land possibly be?" Right. So be it. What's 3 teeny strides of land measured out by a dwarf? What does that have to do with or compare to the might of the great Lord of the three worlds? Pick your 3 strides and they shall be yours. But then Vamana the dwarf extended his stature, growing as big as a full-sized human. And then he continued growing still to a fairly large, tall-sized human. And then he continued growing still to giant proportions. And yet he continued growing still until he attained the stature of a fairly large tree. Did he stop there? No. Vamana kept expanding and growing until he was the size of a mountain. And then, in the blinking of an eye, he expanded his stature to be as tall as the sky itself. With one stride, he covered all of Earth and the underworld. And with his second stride, he claimed the heavens. "Bali," said Vamana the dwarf, who was not so dwarf-sized in that moment, "I've made only 2 strides. And you promised me 3? But where is there left for me to step? What do you suggest I do in order for you to fulfill your gracious boon, Bali?" In wonder and awe at the figure now towering over creation, he knew it must be none other than Lord Viṣṇu. He was humbled by this vision of the Lord. His hubris was abandoned in place of grace, in place of awe. "Hail Viṣṇu," said Bali. "I realize my arrogance in thinking that the conquest of land can compete with your divine sovereignty. The power I wield over the 3 worlds cannot compete with the divine power you wield, Lord. For your 3rd step, I offer my very head. Please place your foot upon my head so that I may fulfill my boon and grant you these 3 strides of land. And so with this, Viṣṇu smiled at the wisdom of Bali, newly earned wisdom perhaps, and placed his foot on the demon's head, liberating him from the cycle of rebirth. The balance of power was restored throughout the cosmos, throughout the 3 worlds, and Viṣṇu was praised in his dwarf incarnation as Trivikrama, he who took 3 steps. When pride and hubris are allowed to take charge, be it within or without, great ignorance and folly ensues inevitably. When dealing with such inflated arrogance, call upon the humble form of the dwarf. Remember how it is to be small before you tap into the expansiveness that is also yours to embody. Dignity and humility are the difference between grandeur and grandiosity. When you engage in Trivikrama pose, call to mind the grandeur of Viṣṇu, resisting the pull of overconfidence and remembering the eventual humility of Bali. So here's the tale of the 3 strides, and indeed of the pride before the fall. That is an English expression, a proverb. It is a literal proverb in that it comes from the book of Proverbs, which reads something along the lines of pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before the fall. That when we are overconfident, these are times where we slip. You know, pride is one of the great banana peels upon which we slip spiritually, emotionally, and even physically at times. But that word is multivalent. We don't mean pride in the sense of being proud of who you are and where you come from and what you do. This is healthy. When you are egotistical about such things, this is unhealthy. And the greater the ego, the greater the obstruction of the light of the soul. And the greater the obstruction of the light of the soul, the greater the shadow that's cast. And the greater the shadow that's cast, the greater the darkness you traverse. And as we all know all too well, it is all too easy to stumble and fall in the dark. So to veil the light, deflate the ego, so that the light of awareness may shine forth. And it is through that light that we can witness all that we can take stock of and be proud of and be grateful for. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed this tale a fraction as much as I've enjoyed telling it to you. Feel free to reach out if I can be of service. Come study with me at indianwisdomschool.com. Feel free to reach out if you'd like me to come and do a talk or a course or something on your platform. I'm Dr. Raj Balkaran, and this was a tale of the 3 strides and the pride before the fall. Take good care of yourself until next we meet. Namaste.